Welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be venturing into a sector you might not expect.
Oh,
The Romanian defense industry.
interesting.
Now, before you think, wait, why should I care about factories in Romania? Trust me, this isn't just about tanks and bullets.
Okay.
We're going to be using a YouTube video as our source.
Okay.
It's called Industria la Raport, EP4 Situația Critică a Industriei de Apărare din România,
Right.
to explore some surprising global trends that hit close to home,
Okay.
even if you've never set foot in Eastern Europe.
I see.
Yeah, so
What's fascinating about this video is it uses the Romanian defense industry as like a lens
yeah,
to examine some broader issues like industrial history, workforce dynamics, and the challenges of adapting to a rapidly changing technological landscape.
You know, I was surprised to learn that Romania actually has a long history of defense production.
Really?
The video mentions a factory in Kugir that's been around since 1780.
Wow.
And many other facilities were built around World War II. It's all managed by a state-owned company called Romarm,
Okay.
which oversees more than 10 factories nationwide.
That's right. Romarm is essentially the backbone of Romania's defense industry.
Right.
But despite this legacy and some recent investments, the video paints kind of a bleak picture of its current state.
Yeah, the video argues that the main bottleneck isn't lack of funding or even equipment. It's the people.
Interesting.
It describes widespread worker apathy, with many employees seemingly content with outdated methods.
Now, it's important to kind of dig deeper into the reasons behind this apparent apathy.
Yeah.
Is it simply a cultural phenomenon?
Right.
Or are there underlying issues like low wages or a lack of opportunities for advancement or ineffective management? The video doesn't really delve into these specifics.
Yeah.
But it's crucial to consider these factors to understand the full picture.
Okay, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
We can't just label an entire workforce as apathetic without understanding the context. But the video does make a striking comparison
Okay.
to illustrate the problem.
All right.
It talks about handing a seasoned Trabant driver the keys to a Lamborghini.
Ah, yes, the Trabant analogy.
Yeah.
It's a clever way to highlight the skills gap that exists within the industry.
Right.
You could have the most advanced equipment in the world,
Yeah.
but if your workforce lacks the training and mindset to operate it effectively, it's all for naught.
So what specific skills are we talking about here? So the video mentions outdated technology,
Yeah.
but can you give us some concrete examples?
One example is cybersecurity.
Okay.
In modern warfare, the ability to defend against cyber attacks is absolutely crucial.
Right.
But if Romanian factories are still using outdated computer systems and software, they're incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's like trying to fight a drone with a musket.
Wow, that puts it into perspective.
Yeah.
So it's not just about having the physical weapon. It's about having the technological infrastructure and the expertise to operate in a digital battlefield.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this leads us to another critical issue raised in the video.
Yeah.
The generational divide.
Right. The video contrasts the reluctance of older workers to embrace new technologies with the potential of younger, more adaptable recruits.
This disconnect is a challenge faced by industries around the world.
Yeah.
How do you transfer knowledge from experienced workers
Right.
who may be set in their ways to a new generation that's grown up with digital technology?
It's a tough balancing act.
Yeah.
You need to respect the institutional knowledge of veteran workers while also creating a culture that encourages continuous learning and adaptation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where leadership comes in.
Okay.
It's not enough to simply tell people to step up.
Right.
You need to provide them with the resources, the training, and the incentives to develop the skills they need to succeed in a modernizing industry.
And maybe that's where the Romanian defense industry is falling short. Perhaps there's a lack of investment in training programs.
It's possible.
Or a failure to create a work environment that encourages innovation and knowledge sharing.
That's a very plausible explanation.
Right.
The video doesn't explicitly state that,
Right.
but it certainly hints at a systemic issue that goes beyond individual worker apathy.
This is getting really interesting. So we've got a legacy industry struggling to adapt to new technologies,
Yeah.
a workforce grappling with a generational divide, and a potential leadership gap when it comes to fostering innovation.
And all of this is happening within geopolitical context where the stakes are incredibly high.
Right. We're talking about national security here.
Exactly.
If Romania can't produce the weapons and technology it needs to defend itself,
Yeah.
it becomes vulnerable to outside forces.
Exactly. And that brings us to another layer of complexity that we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
The role of multinational companies operating in Romania
Right.
and the impact of globalization on the country's defense industry.
Okay, I'm definitely hooked. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll unpack the economic and ethical dilemmas facing Romanian workers in a globalized world. Welcome back. In the last part of our deep dive, we were starting to unpack the challenges facing the Romanian defense industry. Outdated tech, generational divides, you name it.
Right.
But where we left off was this idea that there's more at play than just worker apathy.
Yet what's intriguing is how this video connects those individual struggles to a bigger picture.
Right.
Think about it. If factories can't keep up, it impacts a country's entire defense strategy.
Yeah.
The huge GE domino effect.
And it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
how much agency do workers really have in these massive systems?
Right.
Like, can one person's effort really shift a whole nation's security?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when we consider the historical context.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, most of these Romanian factories were built under communist rule.
Right.
During a completely different economic and political reality.
It's like trying to run a 21st century tech startup
Yeah.
using the rules of a 1950s steel mill.
Exactly. The world has changed, but the institutions haven't always kept up.
Right.
And that's where that generational divide we talked about becomes even more important.
Yeah.
You've got older workers who might be incredibly skilled in the old ways, but less comfortable with a rapid technological change.
But it's not about pitting one generation against the other, right?
Yeah.
It's more like
Yeah.
figuring out how to pass the torch effectively.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's like a relay race.
Right.
The older generation holds vital experience, while the younger one brings fresh perspectives and tech skills.
Yeah.
The key is a smooth handoff, not dropping the baton.
So who's responsible for making that happen? Is it on individual workers to adapt, or does it require leadership from above?
It's got to be both, right?
Yeah.
Workers need to be open to learning new things. But companies also have to invest in training and create a culture where that's encouraged.
Right.
It's not just about telling people to step up.
Yeah.
It's about giving them the tools to actually do it.
This makes me think back to that Lamborghini analogy.
Okay.
What if instead of focusing on the Trabant driver's limitations, we focus on the potential of the car?
Right.
With the right training, maybe that driver could become a racing champion.
Now, that's a thought-provoking flip.
Yeah.
It highlights how investing in human potential, not just the tech itself, is crucial.
Yeah.
Romania might have some catching up to do.
Right.
But with the right approach,
Yeah.
they could leverage those skills to become quite competitive.
Okay, so we've got this internal struggle for modernization happening.
Yeah.
But then the video throws in another layer of complexity.
Okay.
Multinational companies operating in Romania. Things get pretty nuanced there.
This is where we start to see the ethical dilemmas posed by globalization play out.
Right.
The video seems to be grappling with this idea. When foreign companies set up shop, do they ultimately benefit the country, or is it mostly about profits flowing back overseas?
It challenges Romanian workers to consider where their loyalty lies. Are they serving their employer's interests? Or should their priority be their own nation's economic well-being?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
And it's one that many countries are facing in this globalized economy.
Right.
On one hand, attracting foreign investment can bring jobs and stimulate growth, but there's always the risk of becoming too reliant on outside forces.
So it's a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
More jobs, but potentially less control over your own destiny.
Exactly.
The video seems to be pushing for a more balanced approach.
It is. It's about finding ways to participate in the global economy without sacrificing your national interests.
Right.
And that requires careful planning, strategic investment, and a clear vision for what kind of future you're building.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to how interconnected everything is.
It really is.
We started with Romanian factories, and now we're talking about global economic forces and ethical dilemmas.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
These seemingly niche topics often reveal broader patterns that affect us all.
Right.
And it challenges us to think critically about our own roles within these systems.
So as we head into the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
let's keep that in mind.
Yeah.
What does the video's call to action mean for us, even if we're not building tanks or working in factories?
Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll explore how these ideas about agency, responsibility, and the human side of industry apply to each and every one of us.
All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the Romanian defense industry. We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from outdated tech to generational divides to the complexities of globalization.
Yeah.
But what really stuck with me is that passionate plea the video makes to Romanian workers.
It's a powerful call to action.
Yeah.
It's not just about building weapons.
That's
It's
right.
about recognizing that their work has a direct impact on their nation's security, even the safety of their own families.
Exactly. It's like, hey, this isn't just a job.
Right.
It's about contributing to something bigger than yourself. But as we've discussed, it can't just be about individuals stepping up.
Right.
It requires systemic changes too, right?
Absolutely. The video seems to be pushing for a cultural shift,
Yeah.
a renewed sense of national pride and purpose. It argues that a nation's strength comes not just from its military might,
Right.
but from the dedication and resilience of its people.
That makes me think about the challenges facing not just Romania,
Yeah.
but countries all over the world. Like, how do we tackle global issues like climate change or economic inequality
Right.
if we don't have that shared sense of responsibility?
It's a huge question.
Yeah.
And it circles back to that idea of agency
Yeah.
we keep coming back to.
Right.
In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable,
Yeah.
how can individuals actually make a difference?
It can be overwhelming, for sure.
Yeah.
But maybe the key is focusing on what we can control. Okay.
Like, are we showing up and doing our best in our own work, whatever that may be? Are we being informed citizens and making conscious choices about the products we buy
Right.
and the companies we support?
Those are excellent points. It's about recognizing that even seemingly small actions
Yeah.
can have a ripple effect.
Right.
It's like that saying, think globally, act locally.
I love that.
Yeah.
So even if we're not building tanks or making big policy decisions,
Right.
we can still contribute to positive change in our own communities and beyond.
Precisely. And part of that is holding our leaders accountable,
Yeah.
advocating for policies that align with our values, and supporting businesses that are working towards a more sustainable and equitable future.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
what are some key takeaways you hope our listener will walk away with?
For me, it's a reminder that the human element is at the heart of every industry
Yeah.
and every challenge we face.
Whether it's the workers in Romanian factories or the consumers making choices in the global marketplace,
Right.
our individual actions matter.
I totally agree. It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in shaping the future, and that even seemingly niche topics like the Romanian defense industry can offer valuable insights into the larger forces shaping our world.
If this deep dive has sparked your curiosity,
Yeah.
we've included links to the full YouTube video and some additional resources on defense industry trends in the show notes.
Happy exploring. And remember, in a world that often feels like it's spinning out of control, we all have the power to make a difference. Choose to be informed, engaged, and hopeful.